I'm going to roll through the seller presentation. What are the steps, right? The steps are you set yourself up for success by preparing properly before you ever get there. Well, what does that mean? Well, that means bring the listing paperwork with you, plan to sign them. That should be your goal. One of the things you're going to need if your goal is to sign them is probably your CMA, right? So do your color picture CMA tour, print it, have it with you. Grab a folder if you have them. We all got 20 free folders from EXP when we joined. If you haven't ordered them yet, order them. Mine are all filled up with buyer and seller paperwork. So I just grab a folder and go, all right? When you get to the house, be very mindful of it. Manage the entire process. What does that mean? Well, turn off your car radio. When you park, turn the radio off. That way, when you come out of the listing presentation, you can triage what happened, how it went, what went well, what didn't go well. You know, if I said one thing and it got a rational response out of them, what was it that I said so that I can try and fix that, you know? But if I jump in the car and sports radio is immediately blaring at me, my brain has moved on, right? Then you go up, you ring the doorbell, and you hold out your hand. And what are you going to say?
Are you ready to get your house sold?
Are you ready to get your home sold? That's right. And then you shut up. You want to listen. You want to hear what they say in response to that question, because that will be an indicator of maybe some of the hurdles you're going to have to overcome, right? If they say, well, that depends on what you're going to charge me. Guess we're going to be talking about commissions today. That's no big deal, but now I know where their head's at already, right? So that's a good thing. So are you ready to get your home sold? Then shut up and listen. Then they'll let you into the house. Once you're in the house, you want to set your laptop bag down at the kitchen table, being mindful of where people are going to sit, right? Especially in this day and age where you're dealing with multiple cultures. Be very mindful that you need to not sit next to the wife if you're male, not sit next to the husband if you're female. Set your bag accordingly, right? And you can tell when you walk up to a table where it's going to be a safe place, right? Then ask them to give you a tour and warn them that you're going to take pictures. Sometimes you might have to be disarming and say, don't worry, these are not for marketing. None of these pictures are going to find their way onto the internet. These are all just memory joggers for me. That's how I say it. And they go, oh, okay. I've never had, you know, I've had several people kind of go, huh, you are? Because they think it's photography for the listing, right? So just disarm them. Then build rapport as you're walking around. Notice that the guy has been fishing in Alaska, or the gal is, you know, a yoga instructor or whatever. Comment on photos if you see them. Find connections. The best way to get a sale is to get someone to realize that you have something in common with them. So look for those things, right? And then you end up back at the kitchen table, right? Once you're at the kitchen table, we're going to ask those three questions. What are your top three goals as it relates to this transaction? What do you feel you need to do in order to get the home ready for sale? And be prepared for some of the things are going to be repair related, others are not. They're going to be, I need my kid to graduate high school and then we're going to be ready, whatever it is. What do you expect from the real estate community? A lot of times the audience won't know what you really mean by that. So be prepared to say something to the effect of, oh, you don't know what that means? Well, what I'm really thinking is, if you've ever sold a house before, sometimes you have a negative experience that you want to make sure you don't relive. Like, don't let my cat out, or don't leave the door unlocked, or whatever. And a lot of times people will go, no, nothing like that. Just give me a good offer, a high offer, or whatever, right? The answers to these three questions are going to give you a bit of guidance on what to emphasize when you're presenting, as you're going through your slide deck. And that's why we ask these questions before we do that presentation every single time. Bonus training. If you're getting company leads from me, we aren't going straight for a listing presentation, right? Because these are motivated seller leads. Some are in distress, but not all. And as a result, we will two-step this. The first step is just a meet and greet, right? We want to see the house. We want to build rapport. You want to drive their perception in you of character and competence, right? Shoot the pictures, but then understand their timing and motivation. I have this meeting in 30 minutes or less every time. The longer the meeting is usually a sign of building more rapport, right? Because we got to chatting or whatever. But then now I've got the intel of what is the second meeting going to be about? Is it going to be a listing presentation? Is it going to be, I'm going to bring the express offers paperwork because they want a cash offer? Or is it a moving concierge opportunity? And don't make any assumptions before you get there, because even though they're opting in on a cash offers website, I've had them be, truly distressed and behind on their mortgages, all the way up to and including multi-million-dollar waterfront pristine listings, which clearly should be listed on the market unless there's a timing thing. Like, that's the beauty of these leads, is you don't know. It might be urgent and have nothing to do with the condition of the property, right? So you just got to read the room and understand what's important to them, and then give them what's important to them. And that might mean an express offer. I was in one on Tuesday. It's actually in decent condition. It'd be well served to get listed. But her mindset was, if you bring me my number, I'd rather skip all of that. Perfect. Drop it into express offers and see if I can get her number. And if I can't, then I'll revisit listing it, right? But she'll know that I've exhausted the iBuyer market before we give up on that. Make sense? Here's how this conversation goes. I go, what I'd like to do now is show you my marketing system so that you can see how we get the results we get. Control L. Always do Control L because that switches it into full screen mode. All right, what I'm going to do now is show you my listing presentation. Let's all pretend it's in full screen mode. First thing I want to point out to you is that we work in an industry where a lot of people say, well, we do it this way because that's the way we've always done it. Unfortunately, the industry has changed dramatically in the last 15 years. The internet has absolutely turned it over on its ear, and those old habits aren't delivering the results. And if you don't have a mastery of the internet, you're going to fail miserably. And unfortunately, in real estate, there are a lot of agents that don't have that mastery, right? It is a true skill set. So we've always taken the posture of always trying to improve and always trying to do a better job. And it starts with the reasons that people don't use the agent that they bought the house with. I couldn't help but notice, I didn't sell you this house, yet here I am interviewing, right? That's impactful to people. What I'm going to do is focus on the top three, which are poor communication, long drawn out contract, and then basically over-promising and under-delivering. Let's start with the long drawn out contract because that's the easiest. I'm going to give you a cancellation guarantee. The reason that's significant is, I don't know if you've ever read a listing agreement, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, but there is no termination language for you, the homeowner. And we don't think that's right. I work for you. You should have the leverage and the ability to fire me if I'm not doing a good job. And so we give you that leverage, and that does a couple of things. Number one, you now are in control. But number two, I know that you have that authority and power to fire me. So I'm going to hustle every day to make sure that I don't give you a reason to fire me. Does that make sense? I go, yeah, that's actually cool, right? Another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that we are all independent contractors. So even though you might interview Susie Windermere, you're not hiring Windermere, you're hiring Susie. And the problem with that is real estate can be fairly complicated. And it's one of the few industries that has not been penetrated by the assembly line. And then I'll usually reference my audience because he's a doctor or she's an attorney. You know, you're not the one that takes the appointments in your office. You're the one that performs the dentistry. So you have a receptionist and you have someone else that dispenses medication or whatever it is, right? I'll point out that the assembly line applies to their current industry, but does not exist in mine. And we didn't think that was wise. So what did we do? We created an assembly line. So we have an army of people that are here to help me deliver first-class service to you so that you get the outcome you deserve. Listing coordinators, closing coordinators, etc. And we're able to do this because we sell a lot more houses than the average realtor. That's all. Does that make sense? I go, yeah. These are the things that we do in the 72 hours leading up to your listing going live, because you only get one chance to make a first impression, right? Now let's talk about price, presentation, and marketing, because those are the three most important things when considering selling your home. And we have a strategy for all of them. The first is pricing. It is 90% of any marketing because that's the first thing buyers search by when they put numbers into a website like Redfin or Zillow, right? So we have to be very smart about that aspect of our marketing. And we are. We also have a number of things about your property that we can control. There's also a lot of things that we can't necessarily control. And so our goal is to maximize or illuminate the good things and minimize the visibility or impact of the negative things, right? So that's how we're going to do that. The other thing is, I want you to really pay attention on this screen. Look what happens when we price your home at market value. We get 60% visibility in the pool of buyers, right? But if we just increase it 10% to go on a fishing expedition, this drops by half. And so we're trying to find that magic tipping point, right? Price bracketing. Have you ever heard of price bracketing? Well, have you ever noticed, have you been shopping for a home lately? You look, you know, I know the person I'm talking to has been online looking at houses. And I go, have you ever noticed that all the homes you're seeing end in 900, 950, 999 or something like that? Or it might even end in 888 because they're trying to manipulate the Chinese market. Well, that's just proof positive that none of those realtors know how to market real estate on the internet. Because if they truly knew how to do it, let's say your home was worth $100. If they priced it at $99, the guy who's looking from 50 to 100 would see it, but the guy looking from 100 to 150 would not. And I use my hands when I'm doing this. And I'll go, but if I just move that up from 99 to 100, just change it by $1, I double the number of eyeballs that see your home on the internet. Does that make sense? And they go, that's brilliant. Never thought of that. Well, now you do. And we do. It's broker traps. Our right price promise also helps you avoid these broker traps. Broker trap number one, that's the realtor that really doesn't know how to market and price real estate. And so they are just going to say okie dokie to whatever number you give. The problem with that is that you're going to give a number that is a negotiation, right? Because if I say what's your home worth, you're going to think, well, I'm going to start a little bit high because he's going to make me come down. But that agent just says okie dokie, and now you're listing your home at a price that's higher than it should have been, and it's going to languish on the market, right? And then you're in a position where you're having to chase the market down because your days on market is extending. Broker trap number two, that's the guy who does know how to value your property, but he's hoping you don't. And he comes in artificially low, and you're disappointed because you were hoping it was worth more, but your next thought is, well, he's a professional. He must know better than I do. That's a bummer. And then he puts it on the market. It sells immediately because it's at a discount. A good deal doesn't require any marketing, right? And then his commissions might have gone down a little bit, but you just lost 100 grand or whatever it was that the discount was. Trap number three, those are discount listing brokers, right? They typically don't have the skills to get you top dollar, and they don't have the ability to stand out amongst their competition. So their only option is to reduce their commissions to stand out by being a discounter. And the problem with that is now you've got an unskilled person representing you and an unskilled person negotiating on your behalf because you don't negotiate, the realtor does. Does that make sense? Yeah.
And think about this. That realtor just gave away 2/3 of his income without you even asking. 67% of what he might have made, he just gave up without you even asking for a discount. So if he's that terrible at negotiating with his own money, how good is he going to be negotiating with your money? You got to ask yourself that.
Right. So what we created was the right price promise. And what we do is we analyze the data, because what's interesting is most realtors are terrible at valuing properties. And you can tell this because when you ask them what your home is worth, they give you a range. There is no range. Your home, this home, has a single value. And I'm going to tell you what that value is. That is the market price, right? Then we're going to work on the second number, which is the list price strategy, because the list price and the market price rarely are the same number. And that's because we want to design a list price that maximizes the third number, which is what does it ultimately sell for? So you see, we're actually trying to peg 3 different numbers in relation to your property. And we do that with data and analysis and a ton of experience. And I'm going to share all that with you. In the end, it's your asset. So you're going to decide what works best for you, but I'm going to arm you with that information and that data so that you can do a good job and make a good decision. Now let's talk about presentation, right? Because how your home looks is going to be the first impression that people see it when they see it online. The internet has changed everything, right? So part of what we're going to do is we're going to give you our property presentation guide so that you can have your home show ready and make a great first impression on people, right? Because everybody has the MLS in their pocket, right? So we're going to help you do that. The other thing we're going to do is right before we shoot photos, we're going to give you the 75-point checklist so that you can have your home perfect for the photos, because we want the photos to be perfect. And then to a certain degree, you can return back to your normal life and use of your home. It'll also be great and useful tips and tricks on when you leave the home for a showing, what to do, turn lights on, etc. All right, so we'll cover all that together, because in the end, first impressions sell homes, right? People will fall in love with it online if the photos are the best they can possibly be, and we'll help you do that. I even have a staging consult that I can provide where I bring in my personal stager, and she will give you insights into what you can do to make the home present better, and more importantly, photograph better. Photos, I can't overstate how important photos are. I can't also point out how often you see realtors shoot their own photos, right? They use their iPhone. Sometimes they don't even get out of the car and you can see the side view mirror in the photo. It's just terrible. And the problem with that is all of these photos end up online through a variety of marketing engines. And we want to have a strategic plan that maximizes exposure, because you see, we use a no stone unturned approach when selling your property so that we can find that buyer wherever they're hiding, right? Because every buyer has sort of their favorite website that they go to. And it could be a variety of over 1 million websites. We need to make sure your home is on each of those websites and is presented in a way that maximizes the attraction, right? And here's the sad thing. According to the Wall Street Journal, 85% of realtors don't use professional photography. 100% of my listings get professional photography because that's the only way I know how to do it. I take thousands of photos every year, but I don't know how to use Photoshop and make them look the best they possibly can. So I pay somebody to do it. The other thing that's unique about us is we provide a variety of media, because one thing we've learned is different consumers have a different attraction or appetite for different types of media. Some of them love video. Some of them love still photos. Others like those 360-degree, dollhouse tour of the inside of your home. We're going to provide all of them to make sure that whatever they like, they're going to find, right? We even use drone photography. So that's going to be a powerful medium for us to get your home exposed on the internet. Now, this slide is just really poking fun at my competition, because The typical realtor just has one website. And we actually are masters of what's called direct response marketing. So we use multiple websites. I actually own hundreds of them. And they all have a different design and a different audience that they appeal to. And the reason is, again, we want to leave no stone unturned when trying to find that perfect buyer for you. We actually have a branded approach and an unbranded approach, or less branded, we call it, because the Department of Licensing won't let me leave off my company name, but I sure as heck can minimize it, right? Because what we found is some consumers aren't bothered by big business and don't mind going to a website where the branding is all over the place. Others don't trust it. And so they will go to a less branded site because they feel they can trust the information more credibly. We have a website called freenwrealtyinfo.org. What does .org mean to you? And I'd wait for them to answer, because most of them are going to say org like organization, or they'll say org, you mean like nonprofits? And I go, exactly, nonprofits, right? So what happens when people go to that website, because it ends in .org, they trust it more. They feel like that it's not a capitalist website that's there to make money. They don't notice that down at the bottom in very small print, it says the Ed Laine team brokered by eXp Realty. Does that make sense? And they go, yeah, right? Tell me, do you know what syndication means in the context of real estate? Most sellers, all sellers will say, I have no idea what it means. What it means is, in order to put your home out to all the websites, we have to syndicate it first. And what that does is that secures the data so that some joker can't edit it. And the problem that happens if you don't do this is they could take a home like this and put it out on the internet, available for 40 grand. Do you think they generate a lot of leads if they did that? Of course, right? You can't buy a home in the suburbs of Seattle or in Seattle area for 40 grand. It's just not possible. So they generate thousands, tens of thousands of leads, and then they sell those leads. Well, they're useless, right? There's no value to those leads because none of those buyers could afford your home, and you were never going to accept 40 grand anyway, right? So instead, we syndicate it, which, think of it like shrink wrap. We put your listing on the MLS wrapped in shrink wrap so that no one can edit it. And that does a couple things for you and I. Number one, they can't change it. So you never are misrepresenting your property on the internet. Number two, if someone marks it as a favorite online, we get notified. And that way we can reach out to that buyer and encourage them to come and see it live. Make sense? All right. We also have a property launch system. In our market, we can't do countdown timers to when a listing is going to go live, but we can do them to count down to open houses or even offer review dates. And that triggers one of the 5 motivations in Cialdini's book about what motivates buyers, right? Scarcity. So something counting down ignites an interest in something that might not have been there otherwise. And so we maximize that, right? We also are one of the few firms that has a full-time person dedicated exclusively to promoting our listings on social media. How about that, right? And what's interesting is we generate a lot of leads off of social media and Craigslist and other places, which to me has always been a little bit crazy because I always think of Craigslist as a place to go buy a lawnmower or a hose or a bike. But people go there and they will inquire about homes that we advertise on Craigslist. And that's just another example of leaving no stone unturned. And in the end, it works. We get more traffic and more interest, which drives more showings, which drives more offers, which drives a higher price for you. Does that make sense? Yep. Now let me talk a little bit about our open house sign. So our for sale sign. Our for sale sign is oversized. It's bigger than the rest of the signs that you see out there, and it's an attention grabber. The other thing that you'll notice is that it has a text to phone feature on it. The reason we do that is people are 3 times more likely to text than they are to call. And that's just because they don't like talking to people, right? So what we do is we allow them to get information and pictures about your property while they're standing out at the street. So while they're standing there, they can get photos of the inside of the house and determine if it's something they want to take a closer look at. So they get 3 texts: information, square footage, price, etc., a link to photos, and the third text is, hey, if you'd like to schedule a private showing, let us know. We'll be happy to do that. Guess what we get? And I make them answer, and some of the times they go, you get their cell number. If they don't, I say, we get their cell number. And guess what we do with it? That's right, we call them, right? Right while they're standing there on the curb in front of your house. And we run through a script and we say, oh, are you in front of the house with the red door and the green paint or whatever it is, to make sure they know we're all talking about the same house. And then they segue into a script that results in a booked appointment 28% of the time. That's it. It's not rocket science, right? Here's another question for you. Have you ever noticed that a lot of buyers want to know why you're moving? And they want to know like what you loved about living here and those sorts of things. And you're not in a position to answer that. You're not like, I'm going to tell you when people come to see your home, you should leave, because we want them to feel more comfortable. We want them to feel like they can project their life into your home. But we have a solution that allows you to speak to them while they're in your home and you're not, and it's through your Alexa device. That allows them to ask questions like, why are you leaving? What are the floors made out of? What are the counters? How old's the roof? What are your favorite things? What are you going to miss about the neighborhood? Now, as an aside, I will bring the device with me and I will pull it out and plug it in, and I will program it to talk to the seller I'm speaking with. And that blows their mind, right? So anyway, that you can do it with or without having a device with you. Now let's talk about our unique programs, because we work in an industry, like I said earlier, where we just kind of have always done things the way we've always done them. And that's not the most prudent approach anymore, right? We want to get more creative than that. So we've created a lot of programs to help us do that. Programs like our Sell for Free program. So we'll actually sell a buyer's home for free so that they can put a stronger offer in front of you. And what that does is, many studies say that 80% of buyers have a home to sell before they could buy your home. So what we do with this program is we unlock that 80%, and now your home can appeal to 100% of buyers. Does that make sense? That's right. Now, if they say, well, will you sell my home for free? I deflect it. I'll just say, there actually is a way for us to do that, and I'll cover that at the end. All right. And they go, great. Now let's talk about our Moving Concierge program. I will, having already gotten a tour of the home, I'll have an opinion in my head already of whether this is an appropriate slide to talk about. If their home is dialed, I'll say, this is our Moving Concierge program. We'll actually remodel somebody's home and use our money to do it, and then they keep the profit. But your home's beautiful. There's no need for that here. If there is a need for that, then I will dive into it a little bit deeper and explain that we use our money. We only do improvements that are going to have a return on investment of 40% or greater. We have experience, decade-long experience in flipping homes for profit. So we're going to bring that knowledge and experience when making recommendations on what to fix. Most realtors have never done it for a profit, so they don't know. They just have an opinion. What we do is from experience. Does that make sense? And they go, yeah. All right. We also have a cash offer system. So we have a marketplace of institutional buyers. We call it our Express Offer Marketplace. And those institutions will bid on your home. And that saves you having to prepare your home for putting it on the market, preparing it for photos, scheduling showings. All of that stuff goes away because you accept a cash offer. Now, understand that it's not going to be as high as what you might have gotten on the market if you had gone through all that preparation, but sometimes the timing or the convenience are going to be the biggest benefits that people are interested in. And so that's how we operate. So that's available to you if you're interested. We also have our buyers in waiting program. So our systems and our websites have generated tens of thousands of buyers, and we market our listings through that audience because they've already been pre-qualified and we already know what areas they're looking in and what price points they're approved for. And that's going to benefit you, right? With our buyer match program, we end up selling more homes, we sell them faster and for more money. Now, how do we keep in touch? Well, we have an inside sales staff. What we found is MIT did a study, and in that study, they analyzed what is the speed at which people need to respond to internet leads in order to maximize converting those leads to customers. And what they found was the answer was 5 minutes. In fact, they even went on to say in the study that if you waited just 30 minutes, you were 21 times less likely to convert that lead to a customer. So we thought, well, we better hire somebody, because if I'm in a meeting like this, I'm not going to be able to answer an inquiry within 5 minutes, but I can pay somebody to do that. And so we have 24/7 coverage to respond to those leads and cultivate them to encourage them to get a showing schedule. And we qualify whether they're pre-approved with the lender, because if they're not, we aren't going to trouble you with a showing until we get them pre-approved. And we'll refer them to our own preferred lender at that point and make sure that they can afford your home. So that's going to filter out the looky-loos and the people that are just curious. Does that make sense? We also are going to do professionally designed brochures, because when people do come into your home, we want them to leave with something that reminds them of how great your home was when they saw it. And that's a good way to do that. One thing that's different about us, though, is we put those inside the home. We do not put them on the signpost. We found that when we put them on the signpost, they just end up in the hands of your neighbors, and that doesn't do you any good in getting your home sold. So when we put them inside the house, that makes them more likely to use the text to phone feature that's on the sign, because they're wanting information before they decide if they go and schedule a showing or even call the number on the sign. We have a luxury system. So a home like yours will definitely be well suited for our luxury program. We actually use a company that gets your home into the Wall Street Journal, the Robb Report, the New York Times, and others, so that it can be seen by the most likely buyer that will see this sort of post is probably an executive that's moving to the area. So it also includes the Puget Sound Business Journal. Now, some people say, well, in this market, isn't going to sell so fast that it's never going to have time to get into those publications? And the answer is, yeah, probably. But we really leave no stone unturned. So we're going to go ahead and push forward with all of it, because you just never know. At some point, the market's going to shift. And if it does, we don't want to have reduced your exposure just because we were predicting a quick sale. Does that make sense? Yeah. We also are part of the international buyer MLSs. So we are members of a variety of international MLSs, and we have Mandarin speaking brokers on our team so that we can help our properties appeal to the broadest audience, and that includes all over the world. So that's a pretty neat feature that we offer. Let me ask you this. Have you ever heard of a reverse offer? Well, a reverse offer is when a seller makes an offer to a buyer. And a lot of people have never even heard of that. They think, well, that's unheard of because buyers are the only ones that write offers. And that's not true. Sellers have just as much ability to do so. So let me explain how this can work. Let's say someone comes into your home and you come home that day and you see a business card sitting on the kitchen counter. So you call me and you say, hey, what did they think? And I tell you, well, I've called them twice and I've emailed them 3 times, but I don't yet have any feedback for you, but I'm going to keep trying. And you say, okay. And then the next day you come home and there's a second card from the same person. And you call me again and I say, this time I did get a hold of them and they saw it yesterday, liked it enough to come and see it again. but they told their agent that it's too early in the process for them to fall in love and write an offer on something. Well, in that example, we would write an offer to them, because what you don't really realize is that real estate is about compromise, right? Most people come into a transaction with this list of things that they want in a home, and that might be a list of 12 items. At the perfect home might only have 10 of them. So I guess you could argue it's not really perfect, but it's unlikely that you're going to find a home that has all 12. And so buyers have to decide what they're willing to accept and not accept. And for this situation, if they came back and saw it twice, well, then it ticks enough boxes that they're more than likely happy with that home. They just feel like they haven't seen enough yet, right? So we'll actually put an offer together and include terms that are acceptable to you, and maybe even sprinkle in a sweetener. Let's say they made some comment about the blinds. We can throw a credit their way to replace the blinds or something like that, an incentive to have them really consider the offer. Now, this does three things for you. Number one, it allows you to dictate the terms, at least the opening terms, right? So you can sort of drive the negotiation that way. The other is it puts a tangible decision in the mind of the buyer, and it causes them to start evaluating whether this home ticks all 12 boxes or if there's a compromise. And the third thing is it has an expiration. So we've lit a fuse on an offer that gets them the home that they want at a price that's hopefully acceptable to them. And at the very least, maybe they'll counter, right? Now, I've used this probably 30 times. I've closed 12 deals using it. So it works. It doesn't work all the time, but it definitely works. I even had one deal where the buyer didn't have any criticism of the house, so there wasn't a sweetener that we could offer. And so my client said, "Hey, Ed, can we offer an extra $2,500 commission so we can buy the agent's cooperation?" And I said, "That's a brilliant idea. Yeah, we can definitely do that." So we wrote up a reverse offer. I sent it to the agent, and then I called her and I said, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that I just put an offer in your inbox." And she said, "I don't have any listings." And I said, no, this is an offer from my seller to your buyer on that home at 1234 Happy Street. And she said, "Can you do that?" And I said, "Well, yeah, there's no rules that say the buyer has to initiate a negotiation." And she's like, "Okay, well, I'm not sure this is legal." And I said, "Look, I appreciate that you maybe never done this before, but you need to submit this to your buyer within 24 hours, or I'll make sure that your designated broker does it. Because those are the rules. Those are the laws, right?" The agent in a huff said, "Fine." You know what ended up happening? They rewrote the offer. For whatever reason, she could not bring herself to believe that a seller could write it or a listing broker could write it. So they rewrote it and sent it back to us with all the same terms except one. Can you guess which one? They left out the $2,500 sweetener. Yeah. So my client sold their home for the number that they wanted. They saved $2,500 in the process, which they were willing to give up. And we got a deal done. So we are, like I've said too many times probably now, but we really are going to leave no stone unturned in an effort to find you the perfect buyer. Now let's talk about training. So the average agent gets 15 hours of training a year. We deliver hundreds of hours a year. In fact, there's an email I just saw that said there's 52 classes a week through our company. And the reason I bring this up and point this out is we think sales is an honorable calling, and we train on it daily to improve our skills. And as a result, we enjoy more success because we train so hard, right? And that benefits you. So that's the whole point of that. Now, you remember at the beginning, I said the top 3 things we were going to talk about, one of which was poor communication. Well, we've solved that with technology. So we actually are going to use a system that pushes out questions to the people that show your home. And when they come back in, you will get them unfiltered. Now, you might say, well, why does it matter if it's unfiltered? Well, it matters because if I go out and get feedback from 5 different agents and then you say, well, what'd they think? And I say, well, none of them liked it enough to write an offer. Well, you can't do anything with that, right? That's not actionable feedback. But if you got written feedback from each of the 5 and one of them said your home smells like cats or something that we could take action on, that's way more valuable, right? So that's what we do. We also are going to give you a weekly market update. Not only are you going to know the ins and outs of every aspect of the market when your home goes on the market, but as it evolves over time, we're going to keep you updated. Because if a home goes into escrow and yours didn't, we need to know about it and we need to know why. And I will help you figure that out. Does that make sense? Yeah, great. My goal is to turn you into a raving fan. I built my business on the shoulders of happy clients, and I am always doing everything I can to get 5-star ratings out of the folks that I interact with, and you're going to be part of that group. And so just know that that's going to be a goal of mine, right? And I'll pester you for it. So what does all this stuff do? Well, it helps us sell a ton of homes. The NAR studies say that the average agent sells 3.94 homes a year. Last year, our agents sold over 1,600. Now, we have people in our firm that don't sell many, just like any. But what that does is that gives us enough revenue that we can deliver on all these other marketing systems and tools. What's more important to you should be, how are they selling? Well, they're selling for more money. In fact, the MLS average last year was 100.4%, 0.4%, and we were almost 4%. So almost 10 times the margin. Does that make sense? And in this market where the median price is almost 800,000, that's 25 grand in your pocket. And I've had some folks that I've presented to say, well, shoot, your system pays for itself. And the answer is it absolutely does. What's really interesting is I'm in this number. So if you took me out of this number, that number would actually go even lower, right? So that's a cool thing. Now, one of the other 3 things we talked about at the beginning was a long drawn out contract. So we're going to give you our cancellation guarantee. That means you can fire me at any time, but please don't fire me. This is how I feed my family. But really what it does is it makes sure that we're communicating in a way that you are going to always know exactly where I'm at, what I'm doing, and how we're working every day to get your home sold. So I've shown you quite a bit today. What stood out to you the most, or what did you like the most about what I showed you? Let them answer. They'll pick something that's on the screen. Sometimes they'll say, I just liked how comprehensive it was. You think of everything. That's right. And I appreciate you noticing that. That is a very important thing that we've tried to accomplish, and we've done a good job, I think, of getting there. Now, knowing that, am I the right guy to help you get your home sold? If you get anything other than yes, you need to prepare to handle objections. And we'll cover that in a separate video because they can range from commissions to timing to you name it. So we'll have an objection handling video that follows, but it's, are you ready to get your home sold? And more often than not, they say yes. So that's it. Make this presentation your own. Get out there and crush it. Good luck.